Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to the Athletics coverage of Deadline Day. We are here at the Athletic HQ, broadcasting to you live on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube as well. I hope you're all enjoying your Deadline Day so far. My name is Adam Leventhal, and we will have plenty of guests for you on this lunchtime edition of our Deadline Day show. Let me just tell you exactly what we've got coming up for you. We will be joined by David Ornstein very, very shortly indeed. He was going to be here, but he had to disappear to take a call. So we will find out exactly, or he will tell us as much as he can, about what he was talking about. Obviously, we're on the lookout for what's happening with Aaron Ramsey at the moment, and much more as well. And I know that many Arsenal fans will be tuning in to get an update on exactly what's going on at the Emirates, or the lack of goings on. So we'll find out exactly what's going on with David Ornstein a little bit later on in the programme. We will be speaking about Tottenham as well with Charlie Eccleshare. We will also be getting an update on what's going on with Newcastle, ever so busy on this Deadline Day, as we were talking about in our morning show. And Chris Woff will be joining us later on. But we can concentrate to start off with on Liverpool. And Kiva O'Neill has joined us in the studio. How are you? Good to see you.
Nice to be standing in for David Ornstein.
Not at all. It's all about, moving the order around, and that's what it's all about. You're as important as David Ornstein because you can tell us exactly what's going on with Liverpool. We'll come on to, Luis Diaz and the fact that he's now in, and maybe discuss, his strengths and how it sort of changes Jurgen Klopp's proposition. But in terms of one other signing that it's sort of been bubbling around, Fabio Carvalho from Fulham. What's the latest stage that we're at the moment with that deal?
Well, it's all gone quite quiet today,
yeah.
But we're thinking talks are still ongoing between Liverpool and Fulham. Obviously, the Athletic reported yesterday that Liverpool had made a bid. I think that was in the region of about £5 million. So that was the latest. There's no real updates today other than, talks are still ongoing. This might be one that sort of goes into the real Deadline Day, last hour, sort of. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But Liverpool, I think, are keen on getting a move done this month because obviously, Carvalho is a player that Barcelona and everyone else pretty much, all the top clubs are looking at it. He's been on, scouting databases for a long time for a lot of these clubs. So I think the feeling is that Liverpool, if they can get a deal done this month, then kind of beat the chasing pack to him almost, because obviously he'd be free in the summer. I think Fulham would get compensation from any deal, but obviously, Liverpool are, I think, keen on getting a deal done this month, which makes a lot of sense considering how many clubs are interested in Fabio. So yeah, well, it's sort of ... at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's definitely one to watch all the way up until the 11 o'clock deadline. But it is also interesting during a transfer window. You get a real insight into how complicated deals can be. And, we did an article not that long ago about the sort of quite complex situation around Fabio Carvalho in terms of who's actually looking after him and his father, his brother, and other agents and all that sort of stuff. So it's not quite as simple as we want him. Come here, do your medical, Bob's your uncle. It can just take time and time. It's often very complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very complex. And obviously, as you mentioned, I think it's his family sort of looking after him at the moment. He doesn't have an agent representing him. So I think that, maybe causes the conversations to be further down the line, a lot more of them going on between different people. It's not, as you say, a case of Liverpool just ringing Fulham and saying we want to, make a bid for him, because that has obviously happened. But, Fulham want to keep him, and that's their priority, to keep him to the end of the season at least, because they're in a promotion push, and we know how much getting promoted to the Premier League will mean to them, not just in earnings as well. That can 5 million or whatever you get from getting to the Premier League. And I mean, if you watch his performances, Carvalho, he's been incredible for them. He's been one of the standout players. He's really stepped it up. Ridiculous way he just gets the ball and just wants to beat everyone and score, and he's got that finish that sort of just got that little bend towards the far post in his locker. And I mean, he's 19, so
I think if Liverpool did get him, then likely would loan him back to Fulham for the rest of the season, which I think would make sense for all parties. But obviously, Fulham really keen on keeping him, but I don't think that can happen. Maybe, till the summer, but after that, I think he'll definitely be signing for another club, and Liverpool are hoping that will be them.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. In terms of an outgoing, what's the situation at the moment with Nat Phillips? Because he was one that was being talked about at the beginning of the window as, right, Liverpool want £15 million and he can go, and it's gone all the way to the last day, and it seems as if he is now heading off to maybe a place that people wouldn't necessarily have been expecting.
No, definitely not. I think, when those reports made, Liverpool wanted 50 million. A lot of people expected him to be sold. He's put in incredible shifts for Liverpool and showed his quality. Not just that little turn he did against AC Milan, which went viral on social media. But obviously, he's a player that a lot of clubs have been looking at this month, and it looks like it's gone down to the wire. Obviously, Bournemouth now stepping forward, and it looks like a deal might be, happening in the next couple of hours or more. I think, a lot of people are saying about a medical and that sort of thing. So it looks like he could be going there, but I think it's going to be a loan rather than him being sold. So that's going to be interesting to see maybe what, is included in that deal, whether it's sort of loan now and purchase in the summer. So yeah, I'm not really. That's one that's sort of more likely to happen sooner rather than later, I think.
And the big deal, obviously, with we're talking about Carvalho, it's a minor deal in the grand scheme of things, and Nat Phillips heading out of Liverpool. The big one, and the one that might actually make a big impact, is obviously one that was confirmed yesterday. Just tell us about Mr. Diaz and what he's gonna bring.
Yeah, Luis Diaz from Porto. I mean, Liverpool fans are very excited about this signing, and I am myself. I've, like everyone, just spent the whole weekend watching YouTube compilations, because that's what you got to do, right? When the club you report on signs a new player, and I'm honestly convinced he's just gonna hit the ground running in the Premier League. I think watching him, I was watching him within 5 minutes. I said, "Oh my God," about 5 times. I was just like, he's insane. So if he can, bring all those highlights reels to the games at Liverpool, then he'll kickstart his career well. And I think he's, someone who'll bring almost like, Diogo Jota when he signed. It was about the future then, preparing Liverpool for the next chapter after Sadio Mane, after Mohamed Salah. And it feels very much like Diaz is going to be one of those players. He's 25, just turned this month, so he's definitely going to be coming into his peak years. He can play on the left wing. He can play more centrally. So I think he ticks a lot of boxes. And obviously Liverpool felt like it was the right thing to do, because he was on their radar, one of the top sort of players they were looking to sign. And then obviously, it would emerge that he might have been going to Tottenham. So Liverpool sort of pounced on that and made it happen. And I think, fans are very excited when deals happen almost just, out of the blue. And this is definitely one that's been that way.
Okay, Kiva, thank you very much for now. Make sure you come back with more news when it happens.
Hopefully, maybe Fabio Carvalho news. Exactly. Fans, that's what they want. So we'll see if we can get that for them.
Well, yeah, but Fulham do have a reputation for doing things late and allowing players to leave late. So
you tell me I'll be up all night.
Yeah, basically that's what I'm saying. Kiva, thank you very much indeed. Just to let you know what else we have coming up for you a little bit later on. Obviously we've been talking about Liverpool. It is a live studio experience. That was Kiva's mic being cast onto the floor. It happens. It's fine. We've been talking about Liverpool. We'll obviously be talking about Everton as well very shortly. Patrick Boyland is going to be joining us. And I just want to remind you that if you are new to The Athletic, you can head on to theathletic.com/deadline day. And that will give you, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, a 50% discount if you want to sign up and become a new subscriber. We're also going to be talking about Newcastle a little bit later on in the show. Chris Woff is very, very busy at the moment, just trying to sort out exactly what's going to be happening with Newcastle. Dan Burn is heading to the club. Other deals are on the verge of or being worked on as we speak. Charlie Eccleshare is going to be talking Tottenham with us as well, and he's here. and he's walking in as we speak.
Hi, Adam.
Charlie, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. If you want to just shuffle up a little bit.
Sure.
Come
Sorry,
a bit closer.
I was getting too comfortable.
Yeah, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. So, we've spoken about Newcastle. They're just getting deal after deal done. What's going on with Tottenham, and where are they at with these deals that we're expecting to be confirmed?
Yeah, I mean, the two from Juventus is one of those. No worries really at this point. I mean, famous last words maybe, but yeah, we're expecting those to be confirmed later on in the day. A lot of outgoings. I mean, I think they'll be busy wishing a lot of people all the best for the coming season in the hours to come, because you've got Brian Hill has just arrived in Spain. Yep. He's off to Valencia. Lo Celso to Villarreal is kind of that is going to go to the wire, I think, but could happen. And Ndombele is going to Lyon. So they are. Kind of filtering down that squad, which was one of the things they've been wanting to do for a while. Obviously, someone like Hill is going to come back, and Ndombele to Celso. The hope is that they might get a permanent deal there. So we'll see on those. And then Dele Alli as well is a big one to keep an eye on over the rest of the day. And then there may be some surprise buys as well from Spurs. I mean, right wing back is the area they haven't yet strengthened that they wanted to going into the window. I mean, what we were told was a midfielder, attacker. They've done. Well, they will have done two of those with the Juve pair, and then do they go in for a right wing back? But it's quite a hard position to find someone. And Traore, which they wanted, but obviously he's gone to Barcelona instead.
The situation with Dele Alli, what's sort of going on at the moment?
Well, Everton are front runners, is our understanding there. I mean, there've been some suggestions, Crystal Palace as well. Everton. Yeah, I mean, they kind of the most viable option at this point, but there's a lot to sort out there. I mean, Dele's obviously on a lot of money. He's still got reasonable length left on his contract. But yeah, that's the one that looks like if he's going to move somewhere, it's going to be them. And that's one that we've been looking at from early to mid-December. We were reporting that, Spurs would be open to him moving on. So yeah, it's dragged on and on and on, and I think it feels like a shame for a player that's hit such heights that we're kind of talking about him as a kind of cast off, and they just want to get rid of him. But clearly, it feels like he needs a change to try and refresh him and give him a new lease of life, maybe. So that's the one at the moment. Everton, Newcastle were mentioned earlier on in the window, but don't think that's going to happen. They've got interest elsewhere. So yeah, let's see if they actually go through with that.
And obviously we've seen a transfer window with not much activity. Tottenham fans getting frustrated, worried. A couple of signings coming in. Does that do enough to appease the fans, but also Antonio Conte? Or is he going to be starting to sort of bang the drum of, well, I didn't get who I wanted, da-da-da-da-da?
Well, yeah, if the window ends now and they have those two players coming in, I don't think that's a bad window at all. And what I was always told at the start of the window was that there'd be scope for one, maybe two to come in, but then it's about, can we get some out the door before bringing people in? So I think those two have come in from Juventus are good signings. I think they're people with the sort of attitude that Conte will want. I mean, the thing is, you go back and you look at someone like Pochettino, he had a very, very specific set of criteria for who he wanted, the kind of players they were, how they operated, could they fit into a system. Conte is a bit more flexible, I think. As long as they have a good attitude, he'll feel pretty confident that he can mold them into the way he wants to play. So I think he'll be happy with those two signings. Would he want more? Probably, yeah, because he's really, really demanding. And, he has made no secret of how big he thinks the gap is from Spurs to certainly the top three in the Premier League. But he was never overpromised. I mean, when he signed, he wasn't told, yeah, wait till January, we're going to chuck hundreds of millions. Yeah. That never happened. So I think it's more he would have thought, but hold on a sec, we've been beaten by Chelsea pretty comfortably 3 times this month. Don't we want to, isn't it obvious we need to close that gap? But Spurs will feel that these two signings coming in is certainly a good start. And as I say, there may still be more as the day goes on. But I think these two are pretty decent signings in a window that we know is not easy to make good signings. I think one thing that some of the fans are asking is, you've got Fabio Paratici, this master networker, and he's basically taken a month to decide, actually, I'll just go back to my old club and say, have you got anyone available? Yeah. Like, that does kind of seem what's happened. Yeah. And, obviously it's a bit more complicated than that. But yeah, that's maybe not the greatest look if you want to present yourself as this.
Yes.
I leave no stone unturned.
Yeah.
I am, scouring the globe for essentially Juventus.
People
Cast-offs, isn't it? Yeah, it's maybe a bit
Yeah.
harsh, but yeah, I think that's the perception for some. If you're in the anti-Paratici camp, anyway.
That is often an accusation that is pointed towards Watford as well, when they're looking for this big dream signing and then they just get a couple of signings from Udinese, which is just the way it is.
Yeah.
Just one other quick one whilst I think of it. Obviously, earlier on we were speaking to Jay about the signing of Christian Eriksen. Just from a Tottenham, you cover Tottenham very, very closely. From the Tottenham fan base's point of view, how happy will they be to see him playing just playing again, but the fact that it's in London, I don't know, that they must feel good about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know some fans are so kind of feel so wistful about Eriksen that they're kind of like seeing him play for any other team will be really hard. But I think most feel, obviously it's such a feel-good story that he's coming back. But also I think Brentford, if he has to play for someone else, is a pretty good option.
Yeah.
It's not like he's going and playing for a big rival or something like that. So I think most can enjoy the feel-good nature of the story. And the fact that it's not Brentford aren't a club that Spurs fans hate or anything. It's not like I can't believe it. To see him in the the stripes of Brentford is going to be a dagger to our heart. I think they'll quite enjoy it. And all eyes on that game in April. I'm really looking forward to that. Hope who knows whether he'll be able to play in this sort of thing. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if he is, then that'll be an amazing occasion and a nice way to remember how good he's been, because he's a player who Spurs haven't really replaced in the 2 years since he's left.
Yeah. Okay, Charlie, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
When those deals are done, obviously pop back in on the next shows and things like that.
Look forward to it. Thanks.
I'll let you head off. Right, let's now deal with the ongoing situation at Everton, and we can speak to our reporter Patrick Boyland, who is ready to speak to us, because it's not only about the deals in terms of players are concerned, but also managerial appointments as well. It's been a busy old time for you, Paddy. Just tell us, the feeling at the moment. We'll come on to Donny van der Beek and things like that, but just the new era at Everton. How does it feel?
Yeah, well, I think confidence and optimism amongst the fans in particular was pretty low towards the end of Rafa Benitez's tenure, and certainly as they amble towards an appointment for a new manager over kind of a couple of week period, I think that continued. What we've got now, though, is kind of most people I speak to on board with the prospective appointment of Lampard, excited about potential signings like Donny van der Beek. So I think now is probably a time where most Everton fans will get together, realise that the trouble the club is in on the pitch. There's obviously at the moment a real prospect of a relegation battle. And I think Lampard's appointment will unite in a way that maybe some of the other candidates wouldn't have been able to.
In terms of the signings that have been made, and obviously Donny van der Beek is the next one in the door. Is this enough? We were talking about Antonio Conte and the fans at Tottenham being appeased by a couple of late signings. Is this actually enough for Everton, especially with midfield injuries as well? Are you still going to be short? And will Frank Lampard have enough in his armoury just to make sure that they are safely heading in the right direction of the table?
No, I don't think it is enough, to be honest. And I'm almost certain that Frank Lampard and the Everton board know that. Donny van der Beek will be the first piece in the puzzle there, but they're still well aware that they need to strengthen in other areas too. Let's see what they can do for the remainder of the day. I still think there's going to be a focus on the midfield. Van der Beek comes in as a more creative, more kind of progressive-minded midfielder, but I still think there's a gap there, particularly in the absence of Doucouré and Fabian Delph, for a ball winner, a number 6 who's able to get his foot on possession, win the ball back, and help Everton in that regard. I'm not entirely sure Everton's business, at least in terms of an attempt to get something over the line, is done with the kind of the pending announcement of Donny van der Beek.
And what stage are we at with that deal? Is it just a matter of it? They're doing the fancy video at the moment. They're trying to trump Burnley's video that we've seen earlier on of the Jurassic Park situation. Is that basically all it is?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure anything can top that Burnley video today. So you probably just, at this moment in time, I think Everton fans would accept just a picture of Donny van de Beek in his Everton shirt, or Frank Lampard posing with an Everton shirt. Our understanding was that it moved forward substantially over the weekend, that it was agreed Donny van de Beek had a choice between Crystal Palace and Everton, and chose Everton after kind of Lampard's input. And that's accelerated again today. So I think it's just a case now of dotting the I's and crossing the T's and getting that social announcement ready.
Brilliant. Paddy, thank you very much.
No worries.
Indeed, we'll check in with you a little bit later on. It's been a busy old time for Everton on what was supposed to be a quiet weekend, this international break, or this winter break in the Premier League. Just a reminder, you can head to theathletic.com/deadline day, and that will give you our latest offer, which is a special offer today on deadline day, 50% off an annual subscription. We are going to be trying to track down David Ornstein at some point to join us in the studio. In the meantime, though, let's head to the busiest club on this deadline day, and that is Newcastle, and Chris Woff covering it all. Just give us an update as to where we are with the impending deals.
Well, first of all, Adam, I can't remember a time when the January transfer window wasn't open. I'm at that stage now where the deadline can't come soon enough in that sense. But Newcastle are still trying to work on a triple deal to bring in 3 players before the deadline. Senior sources at Newcastle United tell us that should be the end of their business if they can conclude all 3. They're very confident on 2 of them. Dan Burn, the Brighton and Hove Albion centre-back, who Newcastle have agreed a £13 million fee for, is on Tyneside undergoing the second part of his medical. Also, Matt Targett, the Aston Villa left-back, is also on Tyneside undergoing his medical, so he can join on loan until the end of the season. They're still deciding whether there's going to be an option to buy in that. The third one, which is at the moment a little bit up in the air, is their ambitious move for Hugo Ekitike, who is the Rem forward. We understand that a deal has been agreed with Rem for him to sign well in excess of £20 million plus add-ons, but Ekitike himself is trying to decide whether he, as a 19-year-old who's seen as one of the most exciting players in Europe, wants to join Newcastle on deadline day. And so that's a little bit up in the air now, with us approaching deadline so swiftly and him still being in France. That one's a little bit, we're unsure whether that one will go through yet, but Newcastle are certainly pushing and are trying to bring him in.
Okay, so relatively positive that these deals are going to happen. Obviously, the French one has more complications to it. I guess they can still get that deal done and remotely do some sort of medical. Is that how you understand it?
Well, at the moment, the plan was that Newcastle wanted him to come to Tyneside and to sort of do the medical details here, but they are exploring, my understanding is they are going to explore various different options and see what they can do. They're trying to get Ekitike to make a decision as soon as possible so that they can either move on and maybe go in for someone else. I mean, obviously, Jesse Lingard is someone that they've liked a lot, and they haven't been able to find the financial agreement with Manchester United to make that possible. Maybe they will look to that again if they can't get Ekitike, but he's the one that they want at the moment, and they are exploring all possibilities. But as things stand, it's still up in the air, that one. But the other 2 almost certainly should go through.
And the situation with Jesse Lingard, is that completely off the table now?
Ekitike is the one who they're looking at now. I think if that falls through, then they may look at Lingard or other potential alternatives and see if Man United are more receptive to allowing him to go out. But obviously, with the situation happening to Man United over the weekend, they're now down a forward in theory for the short term, so that may affect things to an extent there as well. So it's very much up in the air, that one. Eddie Howe wants another attacking player. Newcastle are not only struggling defensively, they aren't scoring enough goals or creating enough chances. Ekitike is seen as someone more for the future, but certainly almost a wild card off the bench later in the season as sort of a younger forward. So, and then in terms of outgoings, Newcastle need to move on 5 players still. Freddie Woodman is down at Bournemouth undergoing a medical ahead of a loan move there. He nearly joined in the summer, but that got pulled when Martin Dubravka was injured. Jamal Lewis, the left back, my understanding is that he is also now available for loan, given that Matt Targett is coming in. And then other players such as Kieran Clark, Jeff Hendrick, even Dwight Gale, if Newcastle were to get Ekitike, could head out on loan. So that's the situation. Newcastle still a heck of a lot more to go between now and the deadline.
And this was a question that I forgot to ask you a little bit earlier on. That these players are coming in, maybe only with Kieran Trippier as an exception. If all goes to plan and they have the impact that you would hope at Newcastle, and Newcastle stay up, they finish 14th or 17th, I guess they'll be happy with. But wherever they finish, are these players genuinely going to be thought of as players to build a team around for next summer going forwards? Or are all these players effectively signing for a very, very short period of time and then are maybe then just going to have to head away again? For example, Chris Wood, is he going to be the number 9 that they build this new empire around? I guess that must also be part of the decision-making process of these players signing, that yes, you're signing for a decent whack of money, but you're not signing for much certainty as to what happens beyond this summer.
No, I think you mentioned Kieran Trippier and also Bruno Guimaraes. I think they're two players who are very much sort of long-term to build with the club. They've been sold a vision of that, and that's one of the reasons that they managed to convince both to join. But then you look at the other players who they're signing. Ekitike as well is a player more for the future rather than for now if he was to sign. But Dan Burn is very much that they've tried to get Diego Carlos from Sevilla. They tried to get Sven Botman from Lille. They couldn't get their first choice target, so instead they went for someone with Premier League experience. I think Burn is someone who, over the course of the next 18 months, 2 years, even if Newcastle survive and look to reshape their squad, is a good backup option to have in there. Someone like Matt Targett, that's initially going to be a loan deal, so in theory that is by its very nature short term, and then you can see in the summer. But Chris Wood is really the one who Newcastle almost signed Chris Wood to play against Watford and Leeds to a certain extent, that Newcastle needed to get at least 4 points from those 2 matches, which they managed to do. Chris Wood didn't score in either of them, but with Callum Wilson injured and out until March, Wood was signed as sort of a stopgap between now and then. A very expensive one at £25 million, but he was signed almost as a stopgap. And so long term, it's difficult to see Chris Wood being part of the Newcastle United project if they stay up. But if they do go down, he's exactly the sort of player you would want in the Championship as well. So there was a bit of thought there about sort of future proofing in that sense with Chris Wood. But if they survive, I don't think he's likely to feature that much next season.
But does it also show this situation, how ridiculously deep Newcastle's pockets are that they can basically sign a player for, what was it Chris Wood went for, 20 million? For
25 million.
2 games, effectively, and a bit of squad support. And then I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but effectively he can be available for transfer in the summer. It does just show how almost it's just fantasy football now for Newcastle with the new Saudi Arabian riches.
To an extent, I'd agree with you, but they've also found that having so much money has also scuppered some deals this summer. Certainly once they went out and signed Chris Wood, then every other club was looking for even more money than they were previously. And that there is this, Eddie Howe talked about last week, this quote-unquote Newcastle tax on transfers, whereby every deal is so much more expensive, and Newcastle don't want to set too dangerous a precedent going forward by paying all this money, but they are actually able to do that in theory. They keep being called the quote-unquote richest club in the world. Well, the strategy to begin with was never meant to be that. They never intended to sign 6 players this month, spend in excess of £100 million if they do to complete all that business when they first took over in October. But such has been their situation, and so difficult has it been securing particularly centre-backs that they've had to spend more than they probably would have liked on older players as well, who probably don't have that much sell-on value. But it's been both a blessing and a curse for them having the money this month, because it's made things more complicated in many ways, but it's also meant they can do deals like Chris Wood.
Absolutely. It's been a nice headache, effectively, for Newcastle to have. We will check in with you a little bit later on our next show just to find out how these deals are getting along. Chris, thank you very much indeed. Just to let you know that Everton have, in the last few moments, finally announced that Frank Lampard is the new manager at Goodison Park. That was just within the last couple of moments. So he is in, and they will presumably later on announce the arrival of Donny van der Beek as well. So we will check in with that when it happens. I'm just looking at the announcement video for Frank Lampard. He's buttoning his shirt and looking smart. It's pretty standard though. Nothing like Burnley's announcement of their new tall striker. Andy Jones is here, our dedicated Burnley reporter. Andy, how are you?
I'm all right.
Good to see you. And you? It's good to see Burnley's announcement of their new striker. Weghorst, or Weghorst, are we saying?
Weghorst.
Weghorst.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with anyway.
Yeah, just tell us about the sort of the deal that has been done, and I guess the sort of the process, because you've already written about the background to it.
Yeah, I mean, it was striker became a priority as soon as Chris Wood's release clause was triggered, and it's sort of a bit of a rethink in terms of, because Benny came into the window not with an eye on maybe bringing a striker in, but it'd be a young one for the future, sort of to sort of build the squad a little bit more and flesh it out. But then as soon as Wood goes, they needed someone to come in now and score goals. So it's an initial fee of around £12 million with a few potential add-ons as well. So I mean, they've got a striker who could potentially be an upgrade on Chris Wood when you sort of look at his goal scoring record in the Bundesliga and just throughout his career. But he's also very similar sort of stylistically, which is why sort of Burnley identified him as one of the the targets they really wanted. I mean, his height for the first thing, but he's a goal scorer. Does a lot of his best work in the box. Holds up the play well. So when Burnley playing the long passes, he's going to get it down on his chest and look to get people involved. But also, he's quite an underrated presser. When I was just watching him from clips and looking at sort of some of the statistics on him, he's very good sort of off the ball as well, which in Dyche's style, where he wants to defend from the front, that's going to be important.
And I guess it means that I know that there was due to be a game against Watford, which was then called off due to COVID. It's now allowed Sean Dyche to be able to get a striker in who is quite well suited already, and he'll be able to hit the ground running in that big game against Watford next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Burnley have sort of been a little bit lucky with that one. Obviously, I mean, even Maxwell Cornet will be back from AFCON, and he would have missed the first game as well because he had an injury and picked up COVID at that time as well. So you're looking at sort of a strike force that wouldn't have been playing against Watford in either of the games, which now will be. And yeah, I mean, Cornet enjoyed playing next to Wood, and sort of you could see that link up emerging, even though it wasn't loads of games that they played. But yeah, you'd expect Weghorst to be able to come in and sort of fit pretty quickly into Burnley's system because of sort of its set up to have that focal point at the top of the pitch, which he is.
And in terms of the rest of this deadline day, obviously that deal is done, and we mentioned about the great announcement video. Was it great, or was it?
I thought it was.
Did you think
it was
a
bit of creativity, which Burnley haven't had much of on the pitch this season. So
if you haven't seen it, check it out online. It's on their Twitter. It's a takeoff of the famous Jurassic Park scene with the ripples in the water. I'm sure you've already seen it, but that's not all that's due to happen today. Are you expecting more?
Well, they're certainly hopeful that the understanding I've got is from sort of yesterday was that Weghorst was going to get done, and then they were hopeful that they were going to bring more in. Miroslav Orsic was the big one over the last few days, which appears to have collapsed, which Burnley thought they were pretty much there with it. So it's a big disappointment really on that one, and they were very surprised by Zagreb's announcement on Saturday, which said the player was staying, and then it was made even worse when he played on yesterday and scored for Zagreb in a big game. But yeah, I mean, they still want to add the central midfielder and a wide midfielder. They were the two positions when he came into the window that they wanted to add. So I understand that they're still busy working behind the scenes to try and get deals done, but obviously time's ticking and it's a race against the clock now to see if they can get any players in.
And just a final point on the sort of general main priority for Burnley. Obviously, these players will help, but do you think there is enough there, having covered them for the last couple of seasons? Do you think that there is a feeling that they can do what they usually do and just sort of keep up the points and then just get over the line?
I think certainly the belief remains within the group. That's what I'm continuing to be told, and I think Weghorst, his goals will hopefully. I mean, if he hits the ground running, he's the type of player who can score a lot of goals, and they'll help. Against Arsenal, they didn't offer much going forward, but that is without Cornet and without Wood as well. So with Weghorst coming in, they'll look to be a lot more creative. Orsic would have helped that, of course. But generally looked back to the defensive best against Arsenal, which was important because they need that foundation, that solidity to build from. And if they have that, then they'll hopefully then start to nick the games 1-0 like they always do every season. It feels like anyway. So yeah, the belief's still there. I mean, obviously a few more new faces would help, but with Cornet and Weghorst, that strike force, you would like to think they'll be able to put enough wins on the board to sort of just edge ahead of Watford and everyone else.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Cornet and Weghorst when they weren't supposed to be playing in the first one. Right, Andy, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, if anything else happens, obviously check in with us on our next live shows, and you can follow the work of Andy on The Athletic. Thank you very much. Andy's heading off. Right, where are we going now? We're going to check in with Greg Evans and find out what is going on at Aston Villa. We know that Matt Targett is on his way to Newcastle because Luca Digne headed into the club, and he was pretty disappointed about that whole thing. So it was always gonna happen. Greg, from your point of view, what's still to be done today?
I don't think much, to be honest, Adam. I think Villa could be done. Been hearing for a couple of days now that look, we all know that Villa were after a defensive midfielder. Yves Bissouma at Brighton, Rodrigo Bentancur at Juventus, Glenn Kamara and Boubacar Kamara were all targets that have been considered in this month, but for various reasons, Villa haven't been able to get those deals done, and are now saying that they will perhaps take their pursuit into the summer.
How will that sort of go down with the Villa fans? Because obviously there's a great feeling of optimism that Steven Gerrard's in charge, and there's still that process of trying to get better out of the players that were there before, potentially. Not to say that Dean Smith was doing particularly badly with them, but there's that feeling that you've got an upgrade as a manager, and those players will react. And he's been able to bring in Philippe Coutinho, for example. There has been spending within this window, so they'll be satisfied, will they?
I don't think satisfied, Adam. It's a difficult one. You've got to look at it on balance, really. I think Villa have had a brilliant window to bring in Philippe Coutinho, Luca Digne, Robin Olsen, and Callum Chambers. I think they've strengthened their squad from a few weeks ago. We all know that a defensive midfielder has been on the radar for a couple of transfer windows now, and I think Villa fans will agree with me in saying that there's no real central midfielder at the club that can do that defensive midfield role that they're looking for at the moment. They need somebody to sit in front of the back four and really offer that regular, consistent protection. Douglas Luiz is doing it at the moment, but he isn't doing it as well as some of the other players that are in that specific role could do. So, and we know that Douglas Luiz would like to play further up the pitch. So I think Villa have got a lot of players in the midfield area, but they haven't quite got enough variety. So in the future, in the next transfer window, if they don't get anything done today, and I'm led to believe they won't, they'll look to address that area. But look, we've got to reflect and just step back a little and just say Villa have really transformed their squad over the last few seasons, and to now be in the position where they only really need a defensive midfielder, I think that's big progress.
And just one final one regarding Matt Targett. I saw him at Vicarage Road on the opening day up against Ismail Assar. Took him a little bit of time to recover from the fact that it was quite a harrowing experience for him, because Sarr was on the money right from the start of the season, and Targett didn't quite look up to it that day. But obviously he's been a great servant, and he's contributed a lot for Aston Villa in terms of getting forward as a modern fullback. In terms of losing him from the squad as a whole, is that a blow? And there's no guarantee that Luca Digne will come in and tear it up or pick up an injury or whatever. So is that a slight risky move from Villa, or something that they had to do?
No, I don't think they had to do it. I think, it is a slightly risky move, because if Villa are really genuinely serious about building a strong squad and having two players in every position, then if you're letting Matt Targett go, you are weakening that area slightly. But they do have Ashley Young as a backup. Callum Chambers can play there if really needed. There's a young kid coming through called Ben Crisena who they have high hopes for. So in the future, hopefully he will be able to kick on. But I think with Targett, for me, Luca Digne is an improvement on him going forward. But I don't think we're 100% sure that Digne is any better of a defender than Targett is. And I think Newcastle are getting a really solid Premier League signing in him, and I think he'll do well there. Look, he's not going to have been happy at losing his place. He was the Players' Player of the Year last season, so that shows His progression, as you said, Adam, he has been a very loyal servant to the club and done some wonderful things. That game at Watford was a real difficult day. Probably a one-off. I mean, he did have a little bit of an injury in the summer, so he was building his way back up to full fitness, and Ismail Sarr did get the better of him that day. But I'm quite confident that he'll go into Newcastle and improve that team. And for Villa, look, if you look at it from a business point of view, they've just signed Luca Dean. He's going to be the number one left back now. If they can move on Matt Targett potentially for a little bit of money, and if moving him to Newcastle now gets in the games that helps him keep his value up, then that might make good business sense for Villa because they'll get more money for him in the summer.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on in one of our shows. We've got shows at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then through the deadline from 10:30. The deadline in England is at 11 o'clock this evening. Just a quick mention of Watford. Obviously, I cover Watford in depth for The Athletic. We're keeping an eye on outgoings, really, at Vicarage Road in terms of trying to sub down the squad that they have. The likes of Dan Gosling potentially heading out. Danny Rose, who's surplus to requirements, unfortunately for him, doesn't seem as if he's going to get a move this window, but it may well be that he just sticks around, similar to the situation that he had at Tottenham, where he saw out the remainder of his contract. A potential move as well for Domingos Quina, who you'll remember in the summer, he moved to Fulham, and potentially he is heading away from his Fulham loan, maybe heading to Barnsley. Swansea were mentioned as well. And there's a few other little things potentially happening at Watford in terms of outgoings, not expecting any incomings as it stands. But as we have seen late on deadline days before, Watford do sometimes pull a rabbit out of the hat and may sign someone. But that is it's not highly likely. I'm just trying to maybe temper your excitement if you are watching, Watford fans. Just to let you know, if you want to keep track of what's going on with The Athletic, you can follow the likes of David Ornstein on social media. He is away somewhere in the building taking calls on something important, and you'll be able to catch up with the news on The Athletic, on our regular transfer blog, which is running throughout the day. And then obviously there is breaking news there too, and then longer reads for you, in-depth analysis and interviews on some of the signings that are being made. And also very recently as well, we had that announcement of Frank Lampard as the new manager of Everton, and Greg O'Keefe has already written a piece about that as well, which you can catch on The Athletic. Right, our next show is going to be coming up at 4 o'clock, live on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. And I think we're going to be doing things slightly differently. There might be a few left field selections for our studio guests. And just another little bit of news that I can bring you just before we go. Manchester United interim manager Ralph Rangnick has, after a meeting this morning, as we understand it, given his blessing for Jesse Lingard to leave on loan before the window closes tonight. And basically now we will see what happens with the Old Trafford hierarchy, if they get the right offer, and also if Jesse Lingard wants to head in whatever direction is offered towards him. We know that a move back to West Ham has been mentioned. Obviously, Newcastle were heavy favourites to get hold of him as well. And we are keeping a close eye on Aaron Ramsey as well. This is something that David Ornstein has been breaking the news on today, the former Arsenal midfielder, out at Juventus, of course, and he is close now to joining Rangers on loan. That is something that our reporters, James Horncastle, who covers Serie A in depth for us, our Italian football expert, and also Jordan Campbell, who's our dedicated Rangers reporter, has been reporting on as well. So if you want to check out any of this news, head on to theathletic.com. And if you are doing it for the first time, and this is the first time that you've ever bumped into The Athletic, head on to theathletic.com/deadline day. And if you want to become a subscriber, it is a good deal for you this deadline day because you get 50% off a new subscription. We will be back a little bit later on, 4 o'clock for our next live show. And then we'll have ones at 7 and at 10:30 through the deadline. Take care. Have a good day.